Hey, Buckaroos, it's our Sunday show. It's kind of our podcast within a podcast. It's like Inception, the Inception podcast. Today we're talking about, what did you say? NHL and
a little bit of NHL and general manager
stuff.
Tickety tock stuff.
Okay. It's March. What is it? Is it March 4th or 5th? What is this?
Today is the 5th.
Today's the 5th of March. Beware the 5th of March. No, that's 10 days from now. Beware the Ides of March. So, Ides minus 10. We were talking about...
Can I also quickly say something?
Yes. What's up?
We missed this last time. We were right on the fringe, but apparently there is a leap year that normally happens on February. I think they give you an extra day. So for anyone who had a birthday on the leap year this year, happy birthday. We know you're there, even though you are, banished to being an NPC in real life because we don't celebrate your birthdays every year. We know you're there. We see you. We hear you. And happy birthday to anyone who missed their birthday.
That's so sweet of you.
Thank you.
There's this new thing on TikTok called like the moon phase soulmates or something, where you take the phase of the moon when you were born and the phase of the moon when they were born, and then you see if it like creates like a full moon or something. I don't know. The kids.
That seems like something we should spend a lot of our spare time working on.
Well, I mean, it's like, so, but the thing is where are you on the planet? Like, and I don't know. It's just like the whole idea. It's a lot of work. To me, if you need like some kind of arbitrary shape of a big rock in the sky to match up relative to the shadows of the big fireball, you've got relationship problems. Oh my God. So maybe I'm cynical. I don't know. All right. So
before we get really started though, can I go on a mini rant about tech?
Yes.
Here's something that all you texters out there, I just want to let you know what this feels like from the consumer perspective. Okay. So as you know, I was recording some things on an SD card, and then I removed some files, but yet the files are still taking up space on the card, and I can't free up that space again unless I reformat the card. Okay. That's not my rant. My rant is when you're trying to eject the disk properly from your Mac, right? And then it says, cannot eject disk now. Some files still in use. Force eject, ? And you're like, I guess I'll click force eject. And then it says, warning, you may corrupt and destroy everything if you press this button. Yikes. So you are in this situation. It is similar to when the battery dies on your wristwatch and you go to get it replaced, and the guy's like, if I open this up, it's going to void the waterproofing on the watch. I'm like, well, right now it's a blank piece of plastic that tells me no information. So I don't know what to do. Should I replace the battery or just wear this thing that doesn't work for the rest of our life, hoping it doesn't get wet someday? I mean, this is what you go through with force eject. Then it's like, you're going to ruin your SD card if you click this button. Well, thank you for programming this in, because it's helping me. My God. Okay, that was my rant.
I do feel like there is a little bit of this strange catch-22 of like, do we do it? Do we not do it? And it's like when you go to the Genius Bar, the Macintosh store. It's just like, they're like, we're gonna have to send this off, and you may lose all of this data. And it's like, well, I can't access it right now, and that's why I'm here. So what is the difference?
If I cared about losing the data, I wouldn't be here. I would just reformat my computer.
Like literally can't access this information. It's already dead to me. I've already cried over losing these files. And you're like, well, we're going to have to, I know it's just one tiny little piece, but the whole motherboard is like now like integrated into one complete piece. So you're going to lose all the data. And I'm like, well, what genius from Microsoft did you hire into Apple to make this the case? But anyway, we won't go down that rabbit hole.
I'm not going to go down that road because I generally speaking like the way that Apple computers are set up. I kind of like it compared to the other one. And I got a lot of experience with the other one, but I actually like a lot of it. It's just sometimes you're like, why does the programmer not realize that this isn't enough information for me to act on? So if I click this, I'm going to ruin my SD card, but yet you are telling me I should click this because otherwise I can't do anything. I just have to sit here for hours hoping that something magic happens.
Yeah, I mean, well, what's the alternative? I mean,
I clicked force eject, but now I feel bad. I had anxiety. I had to.
But you were going to reformat the thing anyway, weren't you?
Well, no, it was just the principle of it. It just gave me anxiety because I just could not corrupt the disk.
So, but here's the question: there's like a USB like out of this thing, right? And then technically, you could go into file reader mode with your computer, and you could read those files, right?
No, I deleted them.
No, but I mean, before you deleted them, you could have like just saved those files. Like exported like in the file reader mode to like another drive.
Well, yeah, I did that. Yes, so you're right. I took the files off the SD card, and then I put them on my computer. Right, so now they're nice and safe. Oh. And then when I try to eject the SD card, it tells me
you're gonna break it.
I can't eject it because you're using these files. I'm like, I'm not using the files. They're not even on the SD card anymore. It's blank.
To me, this sounds like you need to upgrade to an SDXC Ultra 10 or whatever the new thing is.
It's my fault. Ultimately, I accept blame for all of these problems.
It's because you didn't get the 64 gigawatt supercomputer file card. You got the 32 gigawatt card. It's like okay. So you tried to save $7 at some point because it made sense, and then now everything's a mess. I get it.
Let me tell you, folks, unless there's some performance reason to go with the smaller capacity card or storage, go with the larger storage. It will always be your friend in the big picture.
Absolutely. You always go at least one tier up from the bottom offered. Like, I think what did the Mac have, like a 256 gig drive? It's like you always got to upgrade to 512. Like,
yeah, and that's how they get you. They shouldn't even offer it at 256. I could fill up 256 gig in about 2 weeks of taking sports videos. Like, that's nothing.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Right?
So then it's like, okay, so I'm going to get this 256 gig. So what are you going to do with it? Just surf the internet? Then you don't even need it. Just get something that's like half the price.
Yeah, because basically the 64 gig like iPad is literally like 40 gig just for the operating system. You know what I mean? It's like,
yes.
What are you going to do? You're going to have like a picture of a cat and like all of your links to, your whatever your Safari URL links, in your iCloud. So I've been getting the big like iCloud warning. I don't know if you get that a lot, but it's like, oh my God, you're almost out of storage. You're almost out of storage. And I'm thinking to myself, literally, if there's something that this planet has a ton of, it is data storage. I mean, there's tons of gigs. So I doubt that.
Well, first off, I don't even know where I would go to figure out what is in my iCloud that I don't want and I loathe.
I did that this morning. I had this huge warning. I woke up and it was like, big red exclamation point. Your life is in crisis. iCloud almost full. What are you going to do about it? Give us $5 a month? No, I'm not going to give you $5 a month for this like fake crisis. So I went and like logged in, had to agree to all these terms of services so that I could what? Manage my iCloud storage, right? You have to opt into the terms of service. Like they already like save part of it for you without opting in. And then you have to opt in if you want to like delete it. So like they've collected stuff off of my device, and then I have to opt into a terms of service in order to like get to where I can like delete it back from them. So
and they give you enough storage to just make your life miserable, because I would prefer 0 gigs of storage on iCloud.
Yeah.
I want none.
0 would be fine.
Don't give me any, and then if I want to use it, I'll buy it. But you're making me send you random stuff that I can't shut off, that I don't even know how to access, that I don't even want you to have. And then you keep reminding me that I'm out of storage.
And I need to buy more.
On every single device.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I could not. Am I going to spend days and weeks trying to unravel what this data is?
It's
you've
like
been collecting this for years.
It's like a Rubik's Cube. So I got in today.
Rubik's Cubes. Hold on. Speaking of Rubik's Cubes, I don't mean to interrupt, even though I like to interrupt. I'm telling you something straight up. Check this out. It's Rubik's Cube related. And then you can plug your Rubik's Cubes videos. But I was looking for a Rubik's Cube because you got me really excited to work with Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
And we don't have a Rubik's Cube. There's no Rubik's Cube. And I'm like, damn.
There's a billion of them on the
Rubik's
planet.
Cube.
How do you not have one?
And check this out. Well, we have one, but it's you have to lift weights to be able to be strong enough to turn the thing.
Gotcha.
It's that like clunky and it's horrible. And I'm like, this is miserable. And I'm like, there's got to be another Rubik's Cube somewhere, but can't find it anywhere. So I send my kids out, get the damn Rubik's Cube. I need to try to solve this. Then I'm at the store and I see a Rubik's Cube. It's like $15. And I'm like, oh, there's a Rubik's Cube. And I'm like, I think we've got a Rubik's Cube somewhere.
Oh, no.
So I didn't want to spend the money. Check this out. Remember I told you last time that I was having trouble with the studio, so I had set it all up, then I had to tear it all down. Then I get this whole thing set up in a different location.
Yeah.
I look up, and way in the back corner of the window, there's like a window shelf, a big, deep window shelf. There is a Rubik's Cube, a brand new Rubik's Cube that was actually solved green on one entire side that turns perfectly well. It is the original Rubik's Cube. It's not a knockoff. And it's now, it was 3 feet from where I set up my new studio. Can you imagine? That's like, if you don't believe in karma or you don't believe in amazing grace, I don't know what to tell you.
So you saved $15 and you're going to sharpen your mental acuity. And what's really wonderful about this is, you don't have to like kick yourself, like, because the amount of kicking yourself for like repurchasing.
Oh, I hate repurchasing.
I mean, repurchasing is a night, and I'm telling you, a lot of people are just they are kept down a socioeconomic bracket by having to repurchase like little $15 things like that. It's just like $1,000 $15 things adds up quite a bit.
You want to hear another funny story related to repurchasing?
Hold on.
So I like to charge my phone.
Hold on.
Oh, what?
I just want to button up my iCloud real quick.
Button up your
because I don't want to go back to it. I just want to button it up.
All right, button it up.
So I actually got to log into my iCloud, agreed to the terms of services, all that bullcorn, right? I get into it, and it says I have like over 2 gig of an iPad backup that I never like agreed to. So I got a new iPad, right? And it like automatically like backed up something to this iCloud. And then in this little note underneath it, it says, hey, this iPad, by the way, that we have this backup of, has opted out of iCloud backup. So if you don't need this 2 gig in your iCloud, go ahead and delete it. And I was like, Why wasn't that the email that was sent to me instead of the big
Mhm.
red exclamation point of like, oh my God, you're out of storage? Anyway, so
One of the
that's my
great
point.
tragedies in the modern world is the opt-in that you have to unselect.
Yes,
This is
that's
worse
terrible.
than used car salesmen and ambulance chasers.
Yeah.
This is like Shakespeare's Macbeth,
Yeah.
but this is our tragedy in our real life.
Yes.
Is the opt-in that you have to un-opt out. And I'm telling you something with Apple. If you look through their operating system and you poke around, there are hundreds of these opt-ins and outs and offs and ons, and you can't tell if you're shutting it off if you turn it on, or if you're shutting it off if you turn it off. And depending on where you go,
Yeah.
turning it on turns it off, and turning it off it has it on. And
Yes.
it's criminal that they get away with this.
Yes.
And I'm going to be an angry old man screaming at the moon.
Screaming at the iCloud.
I'm screaming at the iCloud. But it's what we need to suffer. It's worse than pickleball. The people who suffer pickleball, and that has continued to be a bigger problem. I'm now losing friends over this, and I made the stupid mistake of suggesting that maybe it's an upper white middle class affluence problem. And I said that I was going to go into the inner city and ask around to see if pickleball courts were a big problem there. Let me just tell you, that didn't go over well.
Oh my God. I think,
God.
okay, so even if pickleball was the most fun game on the planet, like even if it was just like the fact that it's already been kind of to me, it's like the ultimate gentrification like icon, right? Pickleball is just, do you know what I mean? It's like just representative
exactly what you mean.
of a neighborhood getting turned over and turned into something else, and it's just awful,
Well, the thing is that when the first big article came out, I think it was in like Scottsdale, Arizona. So you can't get a house in Scottsdale for less than like $1 million, right? And then
Yes.
I start to see these local ones, and there's this big controversy in Wellesley, which is like the most expensive town in the entire world. And they're having pickleball problems. And there's this other town called Sudbury, which is kind of like a poor man's Wellesley, but it's super affluent. And they're having pickleball issues. And this is where I'm like, what is the common denominator in all of this? Like, is this a problem everywhere? Because it seems really, really like it's only in certain areas, if you know what I mean. So,
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, the pickleball crisis is amongst those who pay cash for their cars. Like, you know what I mean? It's like these people who are like, oh, well, if you aren't going to offer 0%, then I might as well just write a check for the full amount. Okay. Yeah. And by the way, can I just tell you my neighbor has gotten into this pickleball? Like, okay. I'm sure.
It's anything that upwardly mobile boomers are finding fun, that is going to cause Karen issues all over affluent suburbia. I mean, it is a major problem. And me even talking about it is getting my friend agitated. Like, she's fired up. Like, I'm pissing her off. And I'm like, I don't write these articles. I am just reporting the news.
Oh my gosh. Now, can I just tell you something? Okay. If it came down to it, I am 100% the American Cornhole League or whatever, and anti pickleball, whatever. So like cornhole, like that's a fun sport. You can like drink and hang out and have fun and talk garbage and all the stuff. And you don't have to, I mean, you can either be like a complete savant at it, or you can be completely terrible and still have fun. Pickleball seems like, oh my God, it just feels like a sport that you would have to like hang out with people that you already like. Pickleball is like,
yes, pickleball is It's all corporate people that you don't want to spend any time with outside of the office because you have to spend time with them in the office.
Yes.
And they're all into this.
Yeah,
and you're like, well, why would I want to spend any more time with the bank branch manager than I possibly have to? Oh, well, we can play pickleball on the weekends. Oh, that's exactly what I'd like to do.
The reason I have weekends is so I can have 48 hours where I don't have to deal with you.
And you get the feeling, and hey, listen, man, we just call it the way we see it. I get the feeling those same people that are all pissed off at pickleball courts are like looking down at the bumpkins playing cornhole. Like, oh my God. Cornhole? What is that? They're drinking light beers. My God.
Well, the cool thing about cornhole is like the people are much louder because they're drunk. They're much louder than the actual like the sport is like a pillow on a little piece of wood. Like, you know, like a pillow landing on a piece of wood is not agitating, but like the pickleball pop on the paddles, pop, 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 you know. So the sport's louder than the people are, right? So I think this is like the primary distinction. It's like an inverse, whatever you call it in math. But
the thing is, you're kind of a self-aware guy. Like, I think you're a very self-aware person. I think what happens is
once was
people. Well, you once were, yeah, at one point. But I think the problem is people are not self-aware when it's inside their part of the Venn diagram. So like they're inside their little part of the Venn diagram, and then they're not aware that everybody outside of that can see what the problem is. And then when you point it out, they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And it's like, this isn't an actual problem. Like, I'll give you an example. There's a bunch of people who live in East Boston, and they go crazy when Logan Airport wants to put in a new runway, and you're gonna be living like under this thing, and it's gonna make noise. And you're like, but you bought a house that's right next to the airport. What exactly are you expecting it to sound like when the planes go over? And it's like you live in an affluent neighborhood where everybody complains about everything that's really meaningless in the big picture.
Right.
Of course you're going to have a pickleball controversy. Like, it's inevitable. Like, I might just look at things really strangely, but I just look at it as like, that's exactly the same thing. Like, I actually live underneath one of the it's a landing. It's like, what do you call it when the planes are coming in? They come in at certain times, and they're right. It's not really far from where I live, and so they come in, and it doesn't bother me at all. I'm just used to listening to these planes, and I don't even hear them, to be quite honest. But that would drive some people absolutely crazy.
Well,
So
I mean,
they fight it, and they're against it, and I'm like, well, then you can't. Then you have to live where there isn't a major metropolitan airport. Like, don't move into the city and then complain about noise. Like, Lordy. Sorry, I guess I'm going on more of a rant than I thought.
I don't know. I like it. You're coming out hot. I
don't mind complaining. I love complaining, but it's just like you're not aware that this isn't a problem outside of exactly where you live. Yeah. And that is what I'm really getting at.
Yeah, this isn't a problem outside of your experience, essentially.
Exactly. This is not a problem for most people.
Speaking of not a problem for most people, you said you wanted to talk about the NHL. So, like, the trade deadline's coming, right? Is that what you were wanting to get into?
No, the trade deadline. It's not the trade deadline. What I was going to get at is I've been hearing rumors of how good the Boston Bruins are.
They are very good.
I did not really, because again, I don't know how everybody can watch all these sports. How do you have enough time in your day to follow like 15 different sports teams? It's impossible. So I can't watch the Bruins. Like, I can't watch every Bruins game.
You don't have to.
I gotta watch soccer. I gotta watch football. I gotta watch the XFL. I can't be following every team. and then following the zappy Mac Jones controversy every day. So, needless to say, I watched some of the Bruins game yesterday. It was on TV, and I caught the third period, and I'm like, "Oh my God, these guys are good!
They're
like,
really good.
This is insane." And so what I wanted to talk about was when you get rid of draft picks, or when you decide, hey, we're going to try to win this thing.
Yeah.
I'm starting to have a lot more sympathy for some of these general managers in terms of, if you listen to the crowd and you listen to the fans, you would have no draft picks to trade right now to get anybody, because you would have used them up 2 years ago. So I want to talk a little bit about when is the right time to go all in, because 2 years from now, we are going to be complaining that we have no draft picks to trade. So nobody cares about the draft picks because we have draft picks.
Right.
But if you use them up right now and then we don't win, then don't complain 2 years from now when we can't get anybody, because we have nothing to give up.
So I feel like the NHL is a slightly different animal, because the Stanley Cup is really got so many components. You have to be catching fire at the right time, and your goalie has to be standing on his head. And there's, you have to avoid the injury bug throughout all the rounds of the playoffs. And, there are like 4 or 5 different levers that go into winning an NHL championship that don't seem to be going into baseball or football or basketball, right? And so I feel like, I could be wrong, but this is my sense of it, is that the rabid NHL fan is more about doing the right thing to make the push, right? And if you fall short either in the conference or in the final, right, then you did everything that you could, and the hockey gods kind of conspired against you, right? If so-and-so hadn't gotten injured right there and pulled his groin, we wouldn't have had to go 7 and, all that. Like those kinds of things, right? I just feel like NHL has a little bit more give in terms of not being bitter about not actually winning the actual cup. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I could be wrong. I'm just saying.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It's just that what I'm getting at is, if you go in, see, I was thinking of Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys a little bit.
All right.
Yeah. Now that I look at this, not to ruin your morning,
Reductio Jerry Jones. I know.
But
they teach it in logic.
It makes me realize how stupid it was that they didn't just sign. They should have just given Dak Prescott a smaller deal,
$15 million a year when they could have. Yeah.
Oh my Lord! Because then you could have actually moved all in right then, and probably. I think they could have probably won a Super Bowl if they just did it right, but they didn't do it. They waited, and now they're out of their window as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, the problem is the reason they didn't do it. Here's the truth that no one's talking about. The Dallas Cowboys were in contract hell from Tony Romo. And Dak Prescott is a gift from the football gods, because we got 4 rookie years out of him that basically offset all that crap money we had to eat on Romo for all those years, right?
Yeah.
Dak Prescott is the golden calf that got Dallas Cowboys out of cap hell. And Jerry was too scared to even butt up against the cap just for the $15 million. And so that's why he franchise tagged him 1 year, and then it was just a big old mess, and now he's overpaid. And I'm not, I love Dak, but dude, all of these guys are overpaid, and now you can't build a team.
No, that's very fair. I didn't actually think about that. I did know that. I'm not just making that up.
That's why I dislike Tony Romo. But anyway.
Yeah,
many reasons, but that's number
one.
Not
that you dislike Tony Romo, but that he was costing them a lot on the cap.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. So just take it as an analogy.
Yes.
So if the Bruins, let's say, don't win the cup this year, then the problem now becomes you've just signed 2 big extensions with McAvoy and with Pasternak. Great players, absolutely want to build your offense and defense around those guys. I'm not arguing that. But then Patrice Bergeron is just about over the hill in terms of you're not going to build around him further. Right. So it's like you got to either win now. So if they don't win, I don't necessarily believe everyone who says I'm happy that they went all in right now and they burned all these picks and this and that, because you're going to be happy if they win the cup. But if they fall short, then this team is very much weakened, and you have to then find way different ways. Well, then you can go back to hating on the general manager again.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is I'm very sympathetic now to what these general managers are actually going through, and I don't think they're as obtuse as we're led to believe. I'm not saying all of them, but I think they're smarter than we're giving them credit for, and knowing that they can screw themselves if they get this out of sync.
Yeah, I think you're on to something there, because, part of, the hard part is you can't just like lump in like all NHL fans, right? And even though we want to do that, but there is a faction of fan, right, that kind of sees things reasonably, and then there's a fraction of fan that cannot for the life of them, right? And I think Philadelphia obviously is like the capital of this of this distinction. But like, you have those Carson Wentz apologists out of the Philadelphia Eagles, right? And yet Nick Foles goes and takes him to a championship, and Jalen Hurts like takes him to like, almost like within a few seconds of another championship. And yet you still had all those Carson Wentz apologists who were just, and those are the people who would be like the Bruins fans in the future, who are going to be upset if they went all in and didn't get there. And now, and now they're never going to get back. And now we got to rebuild all that. I feel like that's kind of the same thread of sports DNA as the Carson Wentz apologists. You know what I mean? Like, right. They're so locked in on how something needs to go. Do you know what I mean? Like it needs to happen. It needs to go this way.
Right. And I think what we're seeing, I think this is part and parcel to what we're seeing in Baltimore, where they're not really sure if they want to spend all this money on that quarterback.
Right.
Yeah. And so they're like, well, wait a second. So we're locking up this team for a decade. If we get this wrong, we are kind of hosed getting pieces around him.
Well, did you hear the rumor last night about?
No, what?
So apparently there's machinations to get Lamar to the Commandos.
Oh yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know how you could trade somebody who's technically, like, basically they've got the right to sign him essentially, right? Because until what is it, March 15th or March? I don't know what it is, but so they would technically have to sign him in order to trade him. Do you know what I mean? So does he have to get the contract done, how the Commandos would want it done, and then take over the deal? Like, I don't understand how. I don't understand how that works. So, or the Commandos could trade for him, and then not come to terms on a contract, and then just it doesn't make any sense how that could possibly happen. That rumor, it makes no sense to me.
Well, so this is related to what I was saying, except it's a little bit different. So when you trade for bigger names, and you try, so Jalen Ramsey wanted out of Jacksonville. I bet right now Jalen Ramsey might want to get back into Jacksonville.
I know, right?
When you think about it,
if he hadn't left, they probably would have gone on to beat the Chiefs.
It's yeah.
You know what I mean?
Think about that. Yeah, think about. So now I don't blame him for wanting to get out of there, because I mean that
was the Urban Meyer era.
Yeah, it was horrible. I totally get it. But now the Rams are in cap jail, and they're a disaster. And then they got all these guys, so they're trying to buy these pieces. Now, if you're the Ravens, you may decide, listen, if we sign this guy, do we have a team? Do we have enough other pieces around him? And it's sort of similar to this argument of, when is the right time? Because it isn't necessarily just getting the right quarterback, because you still have to get the quarterback. If you go get, let's say you get Aaron Rodgers or somebody that's going to be really expensive. Well, Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, but is the Jets ready to win? I don't know. Now you've got this guy that's going to cost you a ton for years. So are the Jets ready to win the Super Bowl right now? I would say absolutely not. They're not ready to win, which they're not one quarterback away, you know?
Like I don't know
Maybe
why
what I'm saying
Rodgers
is
would
maybe the
even
Ravens just
entertain it.
want to get away from all of this and kind of re-baseline and start over, because if they sign Lamar, they're just not going to have what they need to win anyway. So I don't know.
I'm just telling you, the Ravens either know something about Lamar, like the Seahawks knew something about Russell Wilson, or they just know they can't afford him and they just have already broken up with him in their minds. You know,
right?
Like
right.
it's one of so there's either something unspoken about it, or they are just reconciled to the fact that their window's over. The romance is dead, because
right.
Because I don't know. It's a very strange thing that's happening because he's so talented, and yet it shouldn't be this much of a drama.
Well, speaking of the NFL, that we can get off of this NFL topic. So the big news around here still remains whether or not a guy you took in like the 4th or 5th round should be competing to be your starting quarterback when you took somebody at 15 2 years ago. I am floored by this conversation, but it won't stop. And you go get a guy at 15, and now you're like, oh, some other guy we got at 5 at a much smaller school with much less experience, where he could just as easily be the starter if he looks good. I just can't. This is why we can pivot to the XFL and talk about something that actually makes sense to me.
So, all right, then we'll just do. There's obviously one game that happened on Saturday, and then there's 3 more games today that haven't happened for us to talk about. But I would love to talk about the game last night. It was the Sea Dragons and the Vipers in Vegas, and we had kind of previewed that on our previous episode. If anyone wants to check it out. On the Apple Podcast, Anchor, Spotify. The thing is, the game was really pretty competitive, like we talked about. And, you had said that you liked both of these teams, and it was really interesting. So towards the end of the 4th quarter, the Vipers, who had been kind of struggling a little bit, and the Sea Dragons, who had also been struggling a little bit, the Vipers were up 20. I think they were up 26 to 18. And so then DiNucci leads the Sea Dragons down to make it 26-24. The Sea Dragons decide to go for 3 and the lead instead of 2 and the tie. And so they're down 2 with like 2.5 minutes, almost 3 minutes left or something. They fail, and then they kick off to the Vipers. And the Vipers just have to run out the clock at this point. And they don't. They run it down to like just under a minute. And then DiNucci has this crazy pass for a touchdown, and the Sea Dragons going to win 30-26, and the Vipers are devastated. And it was glorious, entertaining television. And I don't know. I don't know how you can't, if you love football, I don't know how you can't enjoy what's going on with this league.
Well, so I think there's a lot going on. I think what we're actually seeing, and this is going to get really philosophical, but it's pertinent. I think we are seeing an absolute clash between the old school, the older generation in their death throes of what they are comfortable with as things change and evolve. And then there's probably too much pushing on the younger generation side to just like, who knows what they want. They don't even want real people to play sports, like esports or whatever. But I think we're seeing the death throes of this old radio broadcast. It's just, I don't want it to change. I grew up with the NFL, and I'll just be diehard with the NFL forever. And I ain't even saying that the XFL is going to overtake the NFL. I'm not even saying that at all. But it's just like this whole, it's more the notion that everything that isn't this thing that I am very familiar with sucks and it's bad and I can't deal with it and I hate it and I hate having to watch the game online. It needs to be on TV or whatever. That we are just seeing the fracturing of the old guard and the new guard and coming together. And the XFL, I think, is just right in between where we're like, wait a second, this product doesn't suck. Like, this is legitimately good. So how can this be? Because we all know the NFL is superior and this can't be good because anything that's not what I'm familiar with is bad. Does that make any sense what I'm trying to get at?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like spot on.
So the XFL is like, it's actually good. And everybody who's a hater wants it to be bad, but it's not bad. It's actually very good. It's a really good product. Now, am I saying I'm never going to watch the NFL again because the XFL? No. But we're just now in this battle of, I don't like it. It's not the Browns. We're there. That's where we are.
Yeah, I think you know, I'm just actually Googling while you're going over this because I think it ties in. But apparently, you know, the ratings haven't been that exceptional for the XFL. So back in 2001, the very first iteration of the XFL, the first game of that league drew 100 million viewers. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a huge number, by the way.
Yes, that's what it says. There's this article, unless I misread it. That's what it said. And so now the views per game is like under 1 million watching this iteration. So hold on, let me pull this up again. I want to make sure I read it correctly because it's an article from 2001. So here it is. It says, okay, this was 2001, February 8, 2001, pre 9/11. Wow. So it says NBC is hoping the rest of the XFL telecasts do as well as the opener. The Vegas Outlaws 19-0 win over New York, New Jersey Hitmen scored a 9.5 national rating. 9.5 is 102 million. Sorry, 102 million television households tuned in. Wow. So that was huge back in the day. The Saturday night game got a 17 national share. So yeah, that means So that means there's 54 million viewers or something. Anyway, that is basically on par with like the World Series at the time. So 23 years ago, the XFL was like a huge threat to the NFL. And it's no wonder the NFL came and kiboshed them. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. And so now there's this, you know, it's this kind of like 1/10 or 1/100th the viewership almost, right?
Well, to be fair, though, everything is like this. This isn't unique to the XFL. Everything is drawing smaller numbers because people aren't watching one thing anymore. Well, so we couldn't even watch soccer back in when the XFL came out. It didn't exist on TV.
I mean, I was aware of Pele, but I didn't get to like see him play regularly on a device. You know what I mean?
Correct. So you're going to get a natural fracturing. So that doesn't bother me very much. But the one thing I'd say about the NFL that's different, do you think the XFL has 10,000 lawyers on their payroll? Do you think they have the amount of overhead?
Exactly.
I mean, imagine what the operating costs are for the NA. And granted, I'm not talking about what these evaluations are worth. I'm just saying, look at the overhead compared to what the XFL overhead must be. It's a fraction of what the NFL has to carry.
Yeah, so in 2020, that was XFL 2.0. They averaged 2 million viewers a week, right?
Yep.
And then now it was 1.2 opening weekend, and now it's just under 1 million. So basically, there's like they're concerned that there's a fall off. But I'm still thinking to myself, he bought this league for $20 million, right? So,
and I don't even think it was that much, but yeah.
But I mean, if you're gonna get out a calculator, let me see.
Yep.
Oh,
no, it's like
While you talk,
go,
I'm going to get out a
you go,
calculator.
well, what I'm saying is, here's what I was all right, let's talk about The Rock for a second. And this is not really about The Rock. This is a broader question. So why is it that The Rock, who's got a certain amount of cachet, only gets involved with very specific things? He does, like, why can't The Rock just own one of the biggest food producers in the world, or own a pharmaceutical? Or why does The Rock have to only be selling or associated with very, very small things that are very trivial when we really think about them? And I think it's like the new business plan is, you just don't need 100 million people to buy your product anymore.
No,
you only need a lot. You need a fraction, but you need them to be interactive with your product, and then you can make a lot of money with far less overhead. Like, why isn't The Rock the face of Apple or something? Like, he's not. He's like involved with these smaller ventures, and he's one of the biggest names out there. Exactly. Why isn't Tom Brady the head of General Electric?
Right.
But, like, you know what I mean? They're involved with all these really rinky-dink ventures comparatively, right?
Exactly.
And you ask yourself why. It's because they can make a ton of money in a much smaller niche. There's no reason to get involved with all the complexity of being involved with something bigger than this. You know what I'm trying to say?
Well, yeah. I mean, this whole idea that you have to somehow have, 32 teams all worth $5 billion, right? And in a league that can't even figure out what a catch is, okay? And the XFL is so far superior because it's a lower priced threshold. It's more entertaining. There's more transparency. So one of the things that happened in last night's game is the headsets for one of the teams went dead because they had some kind of little glitch on the field, right? The tech people. And so the rule is, hey, if your headphones don't work, let us know. We go over to the other team. They are required to turn off their headphone system, right, their headset system, so that no team has an advantage. And so this actually really disrupted the Vipers because their headset was like working, but they had to take them off because of the Sea Dragons headsets didn't work. And so, there's this idea, is like, was someone trying to sabotage the Sea Dragons, right? Because that kind of crap happened in the NFL all the time, right? And there wasn't like a rule to do anything about it. And so the XFL is like, well, we're not going to have any kind of impropriety or looking of bias or, so we're going to try and have to level this out. So the Vipers actually had to take off their stuff. And then they had to actually call their plays old high school style and run them in, right? It was cool. And but like the whole time you're like watching and you're listening into the referee, talking to the rules official up in the booth about, hey, this is how we're going to handle it. This is where the ball is. This is what we're going to do. And so this whole idea that the league could be rigged just vanishes. I mean, just vanishes. And even if they're not like great at their job, even if they make a mistake, at least that transparency has brought us into a place where I don't feel gut disgusted at the end of a game like I did at the end of the Super Bowl. Like, there were 4 different playoff games in the NFL this year where I wanted to like almost throw up because of how terrible human beings can be, and how corrupt and awful and broken it can be, right? And you shouldn't feel that way.
There's a cool little viral video that's floating out there of a high school game where the referee takes the ball and moves it a yard and then it gives the team the first down.
Yeah.
It's like egregious. It's like so egregious that you wouldn't even believe it if I told you it was real.
Right.
But the guy literally moves the ball up a yard and on his own just says first down for obviously his son must be on that team or something like that.
Exactly.
But like, but that's what the NFL comes across as. It's like, guys, there's so much, and this is what I meant. Like, why isn't the Rock the face of General Electric?
Right.
Why is he nickel and diamond things with, he's far more popular. He's got, everybody knows him, but yet he's nickel and diamond with this really small venture. comparatively, but the benefit is you can do these things. There aren't layers and layers and layers of bureaucracy. So I get why that's why he wouldn't want to be part of General Electric, because he'd be mired in the stew that you just can't get anything done. And then there's the perception that maybe things are said by other corporations, these larger corporations own, or not said, that can't be said. And it just becomes a big bureaucratic nightmare. And that's what the NFL is. It's like
the NFL
you could
is
fix this in a minute if you were transparent, but they won't be transparent because you'd probably be breaking 50 gajillion policies that we don't know about.
Well, yeah. I mean, the NFL is basically pickleball at the HOA. I mean, it's terrible. It's one of these things where you just, everything is so guided towards, like you said, the bureaucracy. It's just, looks like you just got a call.
You gotta be kidding me.
Who's calling you on the live stream?
I don't even know how to shut this stuff off. I thought I shut it off. Tech, man. Boomer Tech.
Boomer Tech. There you go.
So I had a funny story.
That would be why you didn't react to my brilliant joke and the punchline just like went to silence.
No, well, I actually, a second before that, a cable, my phone went flying across the room, and I accidentally scooped a cable up, and you know how that goes.
Oh yeah,
let me move
I
this
understand.
cable, and so I was very distracted.
This is how someone loses a Rubik's Cube in their house for 20 years.
I'm like, there's a brand new Rubik's Cube right there. Wow. I even had to get a golf club to like go get it. I had to like scoop it out of there with a golf club. So anyway, I'm very happy. But it's funny. It's one of my neighbors came over and he's running for some town council seat, and I'm like, so what's the deal with this? And he's explaining to me, so people can bring their business and then they vote on it and this, that, and the other thing. And he told me this story, and this is what the NFL is like to me. So a neighborhood of homeowners got together and they wanted a bylaw passed by the town that everybody's trash had to be taken in and out on the same day, that there'd be some sort of law you'd be breaking if you left your recycle bin out like overnight. And all of them voted yes, except for like one family or whatever. And I'm like, so one family is irritating you so much that the rest of you can't just agree on your own to bring in your trash. So they had to go get a law passed. And I just feel like this is what the NFL is and the bureaucracy is. It's like, you don't need any intervention here. You could just all take your trash in voluntarily. But they actually went to get an actual law created at the town level. I'm like, you just can't make it. I just don't live that life, but it exists, man. It exists.
So something else that exists, and I can't figure out why, is the NFL Combine.
Oh, God.
So you said you wanted to deep dive into that a little bit. So I'm kind of curious. Like, so what's up with the NFL Combine? I haven't even paid attention this year.
Well, I really wasn't going to deep dive into it. I think that's a little bit harsh. That's kind of like being forced into the iCloud. You kind of put me in a bad spot.
Okay, so
no, but I'm already hearing it. Like, we're already hearing that a quarterback ran a 4.43. Oh my God. He's 240 pounds. He ran a 4.43. You can already just hear it getting pumped up and hyped up. And I just think the combine is just stupid. And like we touched on it the other day. It's just a way for the executives to all get together and hang out and party. Like I'd feel bad for some of these players thinking that they're actually getting some serious looks, because it's like, if you're trying out for the NFL, chances are you're going to be pretty fast. So if we're going to nitpick, a tenth of a second, sure, I guess I'll take the faster guy. But I just think that this is all just for show. It's just content. It's really meaningless. All these guys are fast. All these guys are strong.
I'm glad you said that. That's exactly what I feel like a lot of the NFL has become. Is they created this NFL network. So it's like 24. It's like the Fox News of NFL, right? It's like it's just like, how can there be that much to talk about and it's really just an internal content machine, right?
Right. It's an internal content machine is all it is.
And
it's meaningless because there wasn't a combine. Back in the 80s, football was the NFL was great in the 80s. It was fantastic in the 90s. Of course, Dallas was good then.
Sure.
It's had no problem not having broadcasting the combine. It was fine when the draft was in Radio City Music Hall and it was really small. These things were all fun, but there's so much content that needs to be created that just watching a bunch of guys run a 40 is now exciting. And we're supposed to get excited because this guy beat another guy by a tenth of a second in a one chance race with that doesn't represent anything having to do with what the NFL looks like on the field, like where nobody runs in a straight line for 40 yards. So I guess if you enjoy it, it's great. I'm not saying I'm even against it. I'm seeing it for what it is. It's just creating content for a channel or a network that would otherwise nobody would watch.
Well, I mean, there's just not, I feel like how they've turned everything in America is a season. We go from like Christmas, right? Then we go right into like Valentine's, and on February 15th, you already see like the St. Patrick's crab sitting outside. And then even before St. Patrick's Day, you're already got the Easter crab sitting there. And I'm like wondering what facilities is all this crap that at the Walgreens stored at? And then just like that next day, is there just a big warehouse of this like seasonal stuff? Like, is there like a basement under the Walmart where all of this stuff is?
Right, because doesn't it feel like we're missing out on the actual thing? Meaning it's not St. Patrick's Day, but yet if I go to Walgreens, I can't even get St. Patrick's stuff because it's in the discount bin, like in the corner, all dusty and like nasty. But yet there's Easter candy all over the place. So it's but Easter isn't for another 6 weeks or whatever. And we're missing out. Corporate America,
I know,
is making us miss out on the actual fun that can be had at St. Patrick's Day.
Well, the thing
why
is,
do we even have to see Easter stuff until after St. Patrick's Day?
What I don't get about any of it is, St. Patrick's is a day, right? I don't need 6-week build up to St. Patrick's Day. I don't get it. Like, why do I need 6 weeks of hearts and Valentine's crap for Valentine's Day?
Yes. Well, what I was going to say is, who is buying Easter baskets before St. Patrick's Day?
Apparently, everybody.
Are these people? Everybody?
I mean, apparently. Or maybe not everybody, because like you said, everything goes in the discount bin the day after Easter. It's like, screw the Easter bunny.
You've loaded up
50...
two entire aisles of your store with stuff that there's nothing better you can sell in the next 6 weeks other than Easter stuff before St. Patrick's Day. Like, they're paying these people a lot of money to come up with this plan. And why can't you buy a turkey outside of Thanksgiving? That's another mystery. Like, nobody likes turkey except 1 month out of the year. Come on.
That's weird. All of it's just so bizarre. Halloween's like a whole month thing now, and Thanksgiving is like a whole month thing now, and Christmas is like a whole month thing now. Anyway, so that was my point. It's like the NFL has become like, corporate America, to where we've got combine season, and then we've got NFL draft season, and then we've got OTAs season, and then we've got training camp. And it's like everything is this
training camp, then mini camp, then volunteer camp, then mandatory camp, and then whatever it's called.
It's just everything is, and you talk to people these days, and they always talk about they're overscheduled. And it's like, wouldn't it be nice if like it just wasn't, like, something wasn't scheduled? We could just sit in a hammock today. Can you just sit in a hammock?
Well, to your point about the XFL, to kind of bring this back together, you can actually watch real football being played, or you can watch a bunch of big fat guys running fast. Like I don't understand where our priorities are. Like
Yeah,
I don't.
why would anybody prefer to watch the NFL Combine over watching actual XFL games? Like I can't get that makes no sense to me because, and the reason like the Combine completely makes no sense to me. Like there are people that like they broadcast it like it's the Olympics or something on the NFL Network. It's like they're following this, right? And I'm like, you could make like a 30-second like YouTube clip and like update me on everything that happened at the Combine today. Like I don't need all of the.
Plus, to my earlier point, the like Tyquan Thornton, who was down in your neck of the woods. What's the green college there? Waco.
Baylor.
Baylor. He was a Baylor player, so super fast, probably the fastest player the Patriots have ever drafted, and basically nobody likes him. So I'm like, well, but he's super fast. We should love this guy.
Right.
Did you see his 40 time? But now it's like, yeah, he's okay. He's mid. Yeah.
He's mid.
So it just goes to show you the Combine is meaningless. Like some of the best players to ever play the game didn't have good 225 lifts. Like they were just okay.
Right.
It isn't like a 1-to-1 where like, oh, he could do 225 for 20. He's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. It really doesn't work like that. I mean, these are attributes that all these players have. Now, if you were trying to compare two people, I suppose, like, wow, this guy's super slow. But I'm sorry, but what is the guy even in the Combine for? Like, just to show you that they already know who they're going to take. They already know they were being lied to. They already know who they're taking. Their draft boards are done. This is all for show, folks. It's all for show.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm actually looking forward. I might actually go to one of these XFL games here because they're local to me. So I might check that out. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. Hey, I have a gift for you.
Yes. This is what I'm talking about.
We'd spoken about it earlier, but I actually on my table it says the best Tex-Mex on the planet, Fort Worth's oldest since 1926, proudly made in Fort Worth, the original salsa.
Let's go.
Yeah, so I will drop ship that to you, and you're gonna lose your mind. You've never had anything as good as this. I'm not kidding.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it's as good as my homemade salsa, I will report back to you just how good that is, because that's a high bar.
Okay, I like it. Hey,
but I believe you. I believe there's something. Speaking of tacos and salsas, okay, and you're much more Tex-Mex, but here's what I don't understand, and I think this is a metaphor for life. And this is, I think, the way that I look at things is you could get a certain amount of satisfaction from putting down an 18-pack of Bud Light, like with your boys. Like you could, that is going to offer you a certain level of satisfaction. However, I don't know that will ever compare with savoring a fine bourbon or scotch or something where you're not going to pound a bunch of them. You might have two and that's it. But they're going, the quality, I think we're dealing with a quantitative versus qualitative thing. And savoring things that are high quality versus crushing 18 Bud Lights. So there's a scale of where the satisfaction level goes. And there's this thing called umami, which isn't really a flavor, but it's a feel that makes certain food have umami, or you don't have umami. But if you have umami, that is good, but it isn't necessarily a scientific sense, so to speak.
Right.
And so here's my broader question. Why is it that the food in Texas, like the salsa or the queso or the tacos, why are they superior to anything in the Northeast? And here's my question. Could we get exactly the same product,
Nope.
ship the actual people up here, put them in a kitchen that was exactly the same, and sell and just make everything the same?
No.
And I almost guarantee they're not going to taste as good as if you were in Texas. And can you follow what I'm saying? And do you agree with that?
So there is a place in California that makes bagels, and there's also another place that makes pizza. Okay, and both of these institutions, they actually ship New York water, like the water from the water table in New York, like New York water. They ship it, okay, so that they can use New York water in their dough for their pizza and for their bagels. And
like New York metropolitan tap water,
basically, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, and this is a true thing, and I've talked to a couple of restaurateurs about it, and yeah, so literally the water source, right, heavily impacts the flavor profile.
Interesting.
So what I was gonna say is, if I sent you, and like when I lived in Canada, right, there was a big, there's a Mexican restaurant up there, and it was god awful, and I was like, I can't believe these people are not able to make good salsa. And one of the daughters at the restaurant, she was so sweet. She said, we obviously love what we're doing. We have a rich heritage that we're trying to preserve. She said, but it is impossible to get tomatoes here that even rival like what we like traditionally have. Like they can't physically obtain the tomatoes, and so therefore it's like the flavor profile of the salsa is just completely. I mean, it's like ketchup, right? And I'm not kidding. It's a true story. And true.
No, I believe you.
I sound like a bumbling old man. True story. No, not. I'm not joshing. So but but seriously, so the water, the vegetables, all that stuff goes into the flavor profile, and people don't really think a lot about it, right? So where the tomatoes are grown is huge. And this, like, you'll even hear people here say the In-N-Out in Texas, In-N-Out burger in Texas, isn't nearly as good as the In-N-Out in California and Las Vegas. And it's because there are different agro laws, and they actually have a different tomato supplier. Anyway, it's a big deal. So water's
because I was thinking about that so much the other night, because I was like, well, if you get into the taco business, let's just say,
yeah, thought about it.
Why couldn't we just take that exact thing, put it here?
Yeah.
And I just know for a fact that tacos won't taste as good.
Right.
Something will just come apart, and it won't be as good, even though it should be exactly the same. Right. So I think you're answering a lot of my questions. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and this is also kind of why McDonald's is an absolute miracle of production, because when you walk into a McDonald's in London, you're going to get a Big Mac, and you're not going to be that far removed from the Big Mac you got in, West Texas. And part of that is frighteningly, they are so, they've got like a conglomerate vertically integrated, food supply chain, you know what I mean? And that lends to the quality control of it being more samey. Although I think I believe there was, for a brief amount of time, or maybe it's still true, there's kangaroo meat in some.
But I like kangaroo meat. I would buy McDonald's more often if it was kangaroo. So I never looked at that as a negative.
I think that happened with the mad cow disease or something. There was something. I think there's a big old thing. Um, yeah. Anyway,
so
yes.
that answers my question. I think that what we're saying is these things are not equal because the ingredients are not actually exactly the same, and it impacts what things taste like.
Yeah. So, but
Okay.
what I'm going to be drop shipping you though is coming in a bottle that's sealed, and so it will be as true to the source as you can get.
That is
So
amazing.
I at some point I'm just gonna bully them into becoming the official salsa of the show.
No, we're gonna make this happen. Because we got masa chips. Don't forget masa chips, and we're gonna get a little bit more professional in terms of how we promote our sponsors. But imagine masa chips, beef tallow, organic corn, sea salt. That's it. Amazing. Imagine if this salsa and that chip go together.
Yes.
And we do a joint sponsorship of some sort. It's going to be amazing. Can't wait.
Absolutely. Hey, okay. So, what was there another topic we were going to delve into? I feel like we got almost all of it.
One more small rant, and I wanted to know if you felt this way. You and I both like to live with our clothing. We've talked about that before. Wearing it, we'll buy it, then we'll live with it, and then we'll come back to it. Yes. I think that's totally normal. That is typical behavior for certain males. But have you run into a situation where you are wearing something either out of a sense of guilt or out of sense that you can make it work if you just try it again, and then you were left miserable and disappointed? And I'll tell you what I'm saying. I have a pair of hiking boots, and it was really miserable weather here yesterday, and I had to be out in the cold and the rain and the snow. And so I put on these hiking boots, but they don't really fit perfectly well. And I sort of want them to be better than they are. And so my toes were freezing cold. My feet were uncomfortable and cramped. And I was very, very disappointed. And so I finally decided that I'm throwing these boots away because I'm not getting any satisfaction from them. But it's taken me many, many times of being disappointed and having cold toes and being miserable to get to this point. So is that just a psychological thing with me, or have you ever had problems just walking away from certain clothing items?
So it sounds like there's two different things. One is primarily what you're describing would be a sunk cost fallacy of like hanging in there with something because you put good money into it or someone else did, and you need to give it the good old college try, and it's a waste not to try to utilize it, right?
Well, then I'll give you one more example, so you don't just have the boots. So I had a Gore-Tex rain jacket that was like a Columbia, real nice rain jacket, and it was Gore-Tex, and it was like pretty awesome. And I loved, and I got it as a gift, and it was like a very expensive jacket. And then it crinkles though, so it makes noise when you wear it. So it's noisy, and so I didn't like the fact that I was making noise whenever it would just make noise. It was, it's just crinkly.
Just whistles and crinkles. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm like, so that was driving me crazy, and it wasn't particularly waterproof, meaning it's Gore-Tex, it should be waterproof, but my forearms would always get wet. It was like the water would drip down and then it would leak into my forearms, and so I would go out and I'd go to like a Patriots game or something like that. And I liked everything about the concept of this jacket. I would be, buttoned up, but then I was always miserable in the real world. But It took me a while, and I finally said, I'm done with this jacket. And so, but I suffered with it for a very long time. So that's just similar to the boots.
I think
this jacket.
I feel like a lot of women suffer with their high heels for fashion and stuff. They like walk around like, horses in a stable, clippity clop, and they do it because it's like they're whatever the brand is, La Boutain or whatever it is with the red soles or whatever, So I feel like there's a lot of that going on. For me,
It's possible, yeah.
I'm getting a little bit more Lebowski to where I'm a little bit more hippie about just all of my, like I'm way more comfort over, trying to impress anybody. But
Well, wait, are you using elastic waistbands yet?
No.
Oh, okay,
no,
it's not that far.
no.
Okay.
I'm still a Texan. Come on. So,
Okay, gotcha.
yes, I've had the same belt literally for 20 some odd years. And I didn't even buy the belt. It was actually a belt that one of my friends so I acquired it on a cross country trip, and they actually like left it, right? And I called him. I was like, "Hey, I got your belt," and he was like, "Yeah, whatever." And I was like, "Okay." So I like had this belt, and I didn't. So like it wasn't my belt, so I didn't wear it right for like a whole year. So I was like, "No, whatever." But it's a really nice belt. I'll take a picture of it. I'll send it to you. This belt is so good. It's lasted like 20. Hold on, that was 26 years ago. Okay,
wow.
so I've had this belt. I didn't wear it at first. It sat there and I was like, hey, at the end of this year when I come back or whatever, I'll bring it to you. And
can you send it to me as an NFT fungible token so I can get more value from that picture?
Yeah, I could. Yeah, that's what I'll do.
Okay.
But seriously, so this belt is so nice, and so it's literally just been my brown belt for like 25 years, basically, and it has. So I don't even know who the I need to find out who it is because it's like the nicest belt ever because it's lasted a whole lifetime essentially.
Well, yeah, and then,
and honestly, this belt was
ahead.
probably like his grandfather's or something. Do you know what I mean? This thing was probably made like in the 30s. And just still. Anyway, but my point though is I kind of went down this rabbit hole. I apologize, but to answer your question, we
were talking about me, and now you're talking about your belt.
No,
and,
but I was just gonna say how I approach that kind of stuff, which would be I hate getting clothes as presents, right? Like Christmas, like mom always wants to get you a sweater or a shirt or this, or your cousin or your nephew or somebody gets you something, and they go to a store that you would like never shop.
Right.
They just get you something because it's like whatever was on sale,
or it's something they saw you wearing 20 years ago, and it's like the exact same style.
No, and so I just remember, and I just remember like especially when I was in college, and when you're younger, even people like buy you clothes because like you need clothes. You know what I mean? You need clothes. Everyone feels like it's like when it's like a wedding registry, right? Everyone's just trying to make sure you're not like wearing the same one pair of jeans like all the time, right?
Folks, you need to have more than one fork when you get married.
So, but my point though is I've always hated when people buy me clothes because I'm just not like, and so I have my closet right now is still full of like things that I never wear and I would never wear, but I can't get rid of them because I have two huge fears. One is that family member or friend will like see my closet and be like, "Hey, where's that sweater I got you 2 Christmases ago or whatever?"
Been there.
Or, I keep it just for the one party where that friend who got me that sweater is gonna be, and I'll wear it that party. So that like I can't believe I'm live streaming this, but I like make so they don't know that I hate it.
Well, it's funny because the other thing I was just thinking of you sparked a story. So speaking of this jacket, I was like, all right, well, I need to get a rain jacket because I'm in situations in the real world where I'm going to be dealing with hours and hours of being in a miserable. You guys, I guess, experience this once a year, but we get this spitting rain, icy, damp snow mix, and it's all it is for 2 months. It's terrible. But so I'm like, I'm going to be in this situation. I need to get a rain jacket that isn't leaking or making me wet. And so I had a buddy though who's like, I don't have any problems because I was complaining. He's like, I don't have those problems. I wear this to Patriots games. I'm dry the whole time. I'm like, what the hell? So it makes me realize that two people can have a completely different experience with the same general product.
Oh.
And I could be completely miserable, and my friend is completely happy and satisfied. And you're like, how can you be happy and satisfied? This is a damp, horrible mess, and he's not experiencing that at all.
Maybe you have deformed forearms.
I made some changes, and I was researching another jacket, but yeah, we're not all experiencing the same things. We could have the same general product, and it could be two totally different things, totally different experiences. Just like I don't have any issues with pickleball. Doesn't bother me at all. I think it's great. And then somebody else could be ruining their life.
Well, yeah. And like, I don't have a problem with pickleball either. I just don't like the people who play it.
Oh man. But speaking of leather belts, what I was going to say is, I think we're being ripped off with all these petroleum byproduct clothing. I think that it's just cheap and easy, and we can just put these petroleum byproduct like fabrics out there that aren't really good, and we're missing out on that high quality natural leather or wool or some sort of cotton or linen or something that's tried and true and classic, and you can have it forever. And we're just buying all this plastic stuff, and half the time it doesn't even keep you dry.
Well, this is where I just feel like I feel like I messed up on our live stream. How about that? I feel like everything is narrative driven, where somebody in the plastics industry is the actual person who decided to tell us that, using real wool was like animal cruelty. Do you know what I mean? Using real wool and leather is animal cruelty. Buy my plastics.
Oh, it's going to be too itchy. You don't want that.
But
you want this
that's how it's
all
happening.
Over your body.
That's how it's happening. It's like someone who is in the plastics and petroleum lobby is the one who told us that it's animal cruelty to use leather and wool and cotton or whatever. That's
100%.
There's no other way that it goes down.
Yep, I agree.
And so to me, that's why I just don't buy into narratives, right? Like I am just anti-narrative. Once I figure out that someone is just on the, they've just hit the little autoplay on whatever the narrative is. It's like, I'm just so out. I'm so out on, like my whole mantra is like, what if there's not a problem? Like that would be amazing. Can we just start there?
I'll tell you what was really bothering me is I'm being told that this $300 jacket made out of Gore-Tex is supposedly what you're supposed to wear. And I'm sitting here very uncomfortable with wet arms and not happy at all about it. So I just think we're being lied to about a lot of things. And this is just a perfect example. There is absolutely no reason for me to believe that any of these fabrics are superior to anything.
Well,
in fact, I'm really liking my wool products.
But is your buddy?
I think I'm going to be covered from head to toe in nothing but wool, and I'll be like a happy little sheep running around.
But is there a possibility that your buddy who has the same jacket and is like loving it isn't actually loving it, but he's like putting on airs because like like I'm saying, like with me showing up to the party in the sweater I hate because I don't want the friend to know they bought me an ugly sweater, is that guy like, oh man, I love it, what are you talking, because he's got what is it called when there's some cost fallacy, but there's also something else when you just like are bought in because you don't want to lose credibility. I can't remember what that is.
Not like a brand loyalty thing or anything.
Yeah,
but it's more like a sunk cost. Okay.
Anyway, but I feel like you need to liberate yourself going forward.
Yeah.
And you know what you should do? you should take it on yourself to find clothing manufacturers to sponsor you, and then you could actually, you could do you could have like TikToks of like reviewing. It's like, hey, this one gets your forearms like wet. Like, this is something you should know.
But hold on. So here's the problem. When I was talking about my experience with my wet arms, he was trying to convince other people that I was wrong. So meaning, because he's not experiencing this problem, that I'm actually the cause of the problem, and that this isn't a real problem because he's not experiencing this problem. And I think that's also part of this. Meaning, once that meme gets out there that wool is bad, you're going to get these anti-wool loyalists who are going to chirp up every time I complain that my arms are wet.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he's defending the plastic jacket because in his mind, this is fantastic. It's a relatively inexpensive plastic jacket, and I'm nice and warm. And I'm like, well, why are you arguing with me?
Because you are full of spreading misinformation and disinformation. Oh, you are a proud member of Woolanon.
I'm just a wool anon. Oh man. But I just think about the needless suffering I'm putting myself through. And it took me a while, but I got to the point where I said, I'm like, what am I trying to prove by suffering through these boots? But these are the hiking boots that when you go to the store, everybody's telling you that these are the boots you want to have. If you're out in the cold and wet, this is what you need on your feet. And I'm sitting here with those things on my feet and I'm miserable. And I'm like, my just plain old work boots, far more comfortable and far warmer. I think we're just being lied to.
Yeah, I think you need to get dressed up for like weddings, and otherwise, we should be creatures of comfort. We've reached a point in our society where we should all be creatures of comfort, and I don't know how comfort hasn't become like the biggest conglomerate. Like, comfort should have been the biggest conglomerate by now.
I look like I'm ready to walk around Portland, Maine with my Gore-Tex hiking boots, and I'll fit right in with my Gore-Tex jacket. And the whole time I'm like, I hate my life. I'm not comfortable. I'm wet. My toes are cold. I'm miserable. And it's just like it's grating in the back. And why are you so upset? I'm not upset, but I really am upset. And so, you know what? All right, moving forward, we're not taking it anymore. We are going to be comfortable. Are you with me?
Yeah, I love this game plan. That's a good call to action.
That's a call to action right there. We are going to be comfortable, and we're not going to suffer all this technology in clothing doesn't even work. I was still soaking wet. I'm angry and I'm bitter, but I'm not going to be angry and bitter anymore. I'm going to make a change. Thank you for helping me.
That's awesome. Speaking of call to action, we want people to, if they're like-minded, sensible, not going to take it anymore, but be nice about it.
That's right.
Never shill, never shy. You can follow us, like and subscribe. Comment below at Sports Buckaroo on YouTube, Sports Buckaroo on Twitter and TikTok, Tickety Talk. And then they can also follow you at Boston Buckaroo, which I think is brilliant.
Buckaroo. And that's a new account, so I don't have followers. So please follow, and I'll follow you back.
Yes, you haven't triggered the algorithm yet, so that's what's really good.
Let's just say I got blacklisted for some stuff I can't talk about.
Yes,
but I'm back. I'm back, baby.
Oh yeah, you got over it.
Exactly.
So I really like these Sunday chats. I think they're a lot of fun. So
and you know what would make them better is if I had salsa, but that's on its way.
Yes, it is. It'll be there this week. Quick question. Just looking out at this week, we got March Madness coming up in the future.
Oh yeah. Providence just went down to Seton Hall badly, baby. Badly. Not looking good for my local team.
So we had already kind of gone over our XFL picks last time, so we don't need to do that. But I just kind of wanted to see what was on the horizon.
Well, definitely March Madness is going to fire up, so that's big. We want to be in on that. Obviously, the draft at some point we are going to have we're going to have live coverage of the draft, hopefully. So, yeah, there's some stuff coming up. I also just want to continue to tease out the XFL as it goes. We can always talk about pickleball controversy, but is there anything? Oh, well, plus we're gonna have the Stanley Cup coming up, so that'll be fun.
Yeah,
we can kind of get a little bit more engaged there.
I think once hockey gets into like April, that's when I really love it. So I'm one of those people who I can't give anything a lot of my attention until it means like everything. It can mean a little bit. It can be kind of curious along the way, but
no, you can't, because this is coming up. Like what we are living through right now is a specialization versus generalization, and what this society is broadly missing is that everybody has become a specialist, and we are losing generalists. So we need to bring back the generalist, because we should be educated on a wide variety of topics rather than just being like the fantasy football guy. It's too narrow, and then he's a know-it-all, and then nobody can like talk about it because you're not an expert. So I'm done with experts. I'm done with specialization, and I'm done with plastic outerwear. We are going to be comfortable, and we are going to be generalists, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things.
I think that sounds fabulous.
Yes.
And people who are like-minded can join us. Let's go. That would be groovy. All right. Well, then I'll let you go and enjoy your day. The first XFL game kicks off at the 1 o'clock hour, noon.
Yeah, I'm hitting
Central.
that because I have a couple hours before. Well, I have probably an hour and a half before I have to get to another soccer game. But I am going to watch that at 1. I'll pop that on, check that out.
Yeah, what I like about it is you can actually watch it on your device. So let's see, it's on FX, ESPN Plus, FX, ESPN Plus, ESPN Plus. So I do the Disney, ESPN Plus, Hulu package, and so it's really easy for me to stream that stuff on my phone. I love it.
All right, well, keep us updated on Twitter, and we will rock that out.
All right, then I'm going to hit our little outro music, and we will say sayonara to all of the Buckaroos out there.
And once again, congratulations for being an MVP. You deserve another trophy.
I've done pretty good. Still working on that underachieving humanitarian of the year award.
You're carrying the mantle, as they say. You're carrying the mantle.
All right. Well, we'll get together Wednesday or Thursday, Buckaroo.
Okay. Talk to you then.
Peace.